Hello and welcome everyone to Women's Health Tech Wednesdays. I am your host, Nina Joshi. I have a couple of quick announcements to get through before we bring on our guest for today. We have our Breakthrough Alliance Challenge that is available. Applications are open until the end of October, so make sure that you apply. We also have a new challenge that's going to be the month of challenges with Versali. It's the Versali Challenge, calling for innovators specifically in the menopause space. It's going to be really exciting with a $2,500 grand prize. So also another really exciting challenge. And on top of that, we have our symposium coming at the end of this month. So make sure that you grab your tickets for that as well. Very eventful fall going into it. And with that, I would like to formally introduce today's guest, Gabriella Francis, who is the CEO at Squegg. Hi, Gabriella. Thanks for being here.
Hi, thank you so much, Nina. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited to dive in and learn more, not only about the work that you're building, but also more about you and your journey. So maybe I think a great place for us to start, Gabriella, is if you could just tell us more about your journey, how, what has led you to be where you are today, being the CEO of your own company, and how has your background kind of informed your kind of current career path?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start kind of all the way from the beginning.
Love it.
My undergraduate degree was in sports medicine, so athletic training specifically. And there I really got the exposure to kind of adaptive sports and fell in love with the idea that certain tools or products can help people engage in activities that were really meaningful to them. So I was like, okay, I really like to build things and help people do ultimately, what they want to do. So then I decided to go on and also get my OT degree from NYU. And I took a really life-changing course there. It was actually an elective, but it really, I think, kind of set me on the path that, got me to where I am today. And it was a designing and developing assistive technology course. And it was a really cool course because we took students from the OT program, but then also from the engineer program and design program. And we all worked collaboratively together with individuals who had problems that they wanted to solve for. And we got to create some real life solutions. And what I took most out of that was the idea of this like user-centered design, or essentially involving the user in every step of the process for something that you are building, right? To make sure that you're building the right solution. So with that, I then got exposure to different startups, kind of fell in love with the space. I still practice clinically for occupational therapy, but yeah, really fell in love with the idea of making and kind of this digital health tech side of things, where integrating healthcare and technology together for better outcomes. While I was at NYU, I met a colleague who introduced me to Squegg and really just fell in love with what they were doing, creating solutions for therapists and for the people that we treat to make the process easier, more fun, more engaging, and get better outcomes. So I came onto Squegg initially as kind of like a subject matter expert for the space. Kind of worked, in every part of the company wherever there was a need, and I had the expertise to kind of help give some insights there. I helped out with research a little bit. I helped out with business development. The team really saw the value, and then I was appointed the position that I am today.
Wow, that is absolutely incredible. And what a journey. It really is kind of those like random courses you take or like experiences that you have that can sometimes be like the most defining. So
Yeah.
definitely seems to be the case, which is awesome. And can you, on that note, tell us a little bit more about Squegg? What is kind of the platform about? What's its mission? Would love to learn more about it.
Yeah, of course. So we have, and I believe I have one right here.
Ooh.
So it's a digital
Oh,
health
cool.
device that connects to any smartphone or application. And essentially, it can help with assessing, monitoring, and improving different components of upper extremity therapy, right? So that could be grip strength. We launched pinch strength, soon range of motion. So these assessments that used to have to be, kind of done with analog devices and only in person, our goal is to be able to do them both in person, in the clinic and remotely. So for individuals to kind of, take charge of their own care. And then we also have different fun games, activities to kind of gamify the process of therapy, hopefully make it a little bit more fun for patients. Yeah.
I absolutely love that. And what would you say is kind of like the overarching mission of Squegg, or what you're kind of all hoping to accomplish?
Yeah. Um, yeah, great question. I think just overall revolutionizing how, upper extremity care, and creating solutions to be able to have a more connected system.
That's incredible. And I love that are really kind of centered around the upper extremity condition because I feel like that is something that is so important. Can you explain a little bit more like what inspired really that focus in this particular area? Like kind of in the realm of digital health, or is there any kind of specific catalyst that made you all decide that this was really the place that we needed to start?
Yeah, well, I can speak for the company first, and I can speak for my own path and
Yeah,
how I've been
sure.
able to lead. But the company was initially started in 2019 as a Kickstarter to increase grip strength for sports, which obviously I can relate to from my athletic training experience. But it was direct to consumer, and then our founder Saket was actually inundated with occupational therapists like myself who are like, "Wait, this is really useful. I want to use this," and he's like, okay, wait, hold on. It's not really built out for that. Let me get some
Yeah,
experts on my team to help build the right solution for that need that you're having. So he brought in the likes of myself, and I was able to kind of build the team as well. We have two other occupational therapists, certified hand therapists on our staff, kind of in C-suite positions, that are able to use their industry background and expertise to help build for the right solution. Um,
yeah.
so that's kind of where we started. And then we've transitioned because of that organic traction. Then there's also just, a very obvious fit, right? These are things
Hmm.
that OTs are assessing for and treating already. So just kind of was a perfect blend. And then,
Yeah.
my own expertise and background, being an occupational therapist, having that expertise within the upper extremity therapy space definitely helps.
For sure. I love that. And it's so interesting how it started direct to consumer, but as you said, there was such attraction, such a demand to kind of involve occupational therapists. And I'm just so curious, like, how did kind of that like integration, right, between a digital health solution and your traditional occupational therapy practices, were there any particular, challenges that came with integrating like a device into a current practice? And I'm sure, I mean, we could speak to so many benefits, but was so
Yeah.
curious about like that transition and that integration. Like, were there any kind of hurdles or challenges or things that you kind of had to think through when you were making that move?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I could go on for like the whole 30 minutes just about this, but I think I can speak to Squegg specifically, but I think on a broader level, it's important to kind of just understand the integration of healthcare, or sorry, technology into healthcare, some of the barriers and facilitators that
Hmm.
exist out there. So I'll speak kind of broadly first. So from a barrier standpoint, or things that could be, a little bit of a challenge for a clinician to implement technology into their own practice. There's technology issues, so issues with the tech itself. This could be like a lack of
Mm,
integration with the technology into their EMR system that they have, which I
right.
know is a big barrier to overcome. There's kind of the psychological factors to it. Clinicians need to feel comfortable using it. Patients need to feel comfortable using it. Do you have that evidence-based? Do you have the publications, the research publications out there that say that this is actually effective, and you feel safe using it as a clinician with the people that you serve? There's
Mhm.
also data privacy concerns. There are HIPAA certifications and things like that, which we've been able to achieve, but
Mhm.
that's definitely a concern for clinicians and patients, obviously, as well. Like, you want to protect your data.
Definitely.
Um, and then, yeah, there's just overall, I think, like a lack of training sometimes, or a lack of buy-in from both clinicians and also patients. And then it's sometimes hard to change existing workflows, right? Like, people get
Definitely.
into specifically clinicians, right? Like, there's only so much time that you get to spend with someone, and if you have a system that works really well for you in the past, why are you going to change that, right? Like, you have to make sure that there's a
Totally.
big enough value add in order to kind of disrupt what you're used to. So yeah, so I think those are some of the main barriers, and some of the facilitators I think are things that can kind of help out with some of those barriers, right? So, in building the technology, are you talking to healthcare providers to make sure that you're actually solving for a hair burning problem
Mm,
and
right.
actually adding value? I would hope the answer is yes, but that's one thing.
Yeah.
You also, do you have people with industry knowledge on your team who can also speak the same language as clinicians to help kind of understand any of their reservations or questions, and answer for them ahead of time to make sure that, the training for both the clinicians and the, ultimate end users is seamless.
Right.
A streamlined process, again, like not disrupting existing workflows, working on an individual, like clinic to clinic level, understanding, because everyone, every clinic does it differently. You got to understand how they're doing it and then how to best, integrate your tech into that existing workflow in a way that's going to be frictionless, right? Because one thing about me as a clinician myself, right? Like if I experience any sort of friction, it could be the most, small thing. I'm like, okay, I don't have time for this. There's a bajillion other things I got to get to, like, maybe not right now. So a frictionless process. And then, just making sure that your tech is easy to use. It's easy to understand. It's really intuitive, which, when I first kind of came into things as a clinician side of things, it was really easy to critique and be like, well, why do they have this or why do they have that? But then now as the, kind of on the flip side of things as the innovator, I have a bigger respect for everything that goes into building out these systems.
Totally.
Yeah.
I love that. And that was such a great like overview of kind of just your experiences that you've seen when it comes to like this broader integration. And I think one of the things I've heard a lot is I would imagine like collaboration is so important, especially with like the occupational therapist. And for you and for Squegg, like what does that collaboration look like? How are you kind of really involving your occupational therapists, the people that, are the end users or that are really supporting and promoting the tool into like the overall process?
Yeah. No, I love this question because it's like everything I stand for, right? From a user-centered design approach, I'm like involved at every level, right?
Totally.
So we have, like I mentioned, people on our team who have domain expertise. There are occupational therapists like myself, certified hand therapists. We even have treating physicians, and then we have people like clinic owners on our team as well. So they understand from more of like an ops perspective. So get people in on your team who really understand, what solution you're building for the market, and then talk to people, right? Like get out there. We did so much customer exploration research, and it doesn't stop like right at the beginning. You have to like involve them in every step.
Totally.
So we're constantly, hopping on calls with people, understanding like how their experience is, what were their challenges, how can we solve for those challenges. So we have really good relationships with all the clinics who are currently using us, which I think is really beneficial. And then so that kind of beta testing throughout, it doesn't it's always iterative. You know what I mean?
Right. Totally.
You shouldn't just do beta testing before you launch something. You should continue to go back to your users and understand their experiences and how you can better your product. So that's something that we stand for. And then not only with clinics themselves, but also with our ultimate end users, right? Individuals from very diverse backgrounds who are using and understand kind of each use case, and realize that each and every person's experience matters. So you're not just looking at, top of the chain, like everyone who's a user matter. Like we're customer obsessed in that sense. Yeah.
I love it. Because I was actually just going to ask you about the consumer part and like how you all are ensuring that these digital solutions are like not only effective, but like what you were saying, like user friendly, like the gamification, how to make it something that's like exciting and engaging. And it seems like really it's just continuously getting feedback.
Yeah,
I love
definitely.
That. I'm so curious, like just on that note, because you had mentioned something about, really like just the breadth of the different types of use cases that you're seeing with all of these different patients. Are there any like particular points of feedback or any stories that you can share, just things that you've heard from women that have like used your product? And I would imagine that obviously has to some level kind of influenced future like product development. But if there's anything that you could share, that I'm just so curious.
Yeah. Some specific cases that are coming like top of mind just because I hopped off calls like yesterday where we were talking about these things. But I know for treating clinicians specifically, like being able to onboard an individual really seamlessly and easily, and only taking the necessary information, not having extra fields where, maybe that's good from a data perspective where you can then go back retrospectively and look at, oh, well, this, but in the moment, really just respecting people's data and respecting privacy, and also just like taking the bare amount necessary for the end goal. So that's something that we've kind of cut down the information that we take in the beginning.
Yeah.
Age, gender, hand dominance, the things that really matter for the norms that we have. And ultimately what's going to, be important for tracking progress. Those are the things that we now focus on. A different side of things, we were talking about ease of use and things like that, using different like biotechniques, so like fingerprint or face recognition for logging in, logging out, because we are HIPAA compliant, so some of the password requirements can be kind of lengthy.
Totally.
So having those systems in place to make sure that everything's safe, but it's also not creating friction for the therapist or patient who wants to use, like they have to,
Totally
create certain passwords and stuff like that. I know there's so many more, but those are the
No,
ones that I feel like came top of mind.
Totally.
You also
And
did
they're
bring
important
up,
ones.
yeah, women in particular, and this might be a little off track of the question, but I feel like it's important to kind of talk about. So with women specifically, obviously our products are made for everyone, right? Like men, women, non-binary individuals, they all experience upper extremity issues. Women do experience some of these upper extremity issues at a higher rate. Like they have an increased risk for stroke, an increased risk for falls, which then can lead to distal radius fractures, which is one of the most common upper extremity injuries that we help to treat. Shoulder injury, shoulder laxicity, like all of these things. That's kind of the most obvious one. But then when we're talking about kind of the basis for integrating tech, I always go back to research. And I think that one of the biggest biases lie within academic research and then also like AI. So I think that we need to really help do our part in order to kind of help overcome those biases and involve diverse sampling within, academic research within your participant population, but then also in training different AI models, making sure that you have diversity with who's training those models as well. So we do have some AI, we do have research. So I try and, be for the girls in that sense.
Yes.
In overcoming these very important topics. So a little bit off track, sorry. But,
no, not at all. Like I didn't realize, I mean, you hear so much about like some of the different like rates and prevalences, but I didn't like just to hear kind of what you're seeing just with upper extremities. I so did not know that. So it's really great that not only are you solving for it, but you're also doing like the upstream effort, whether it's through research or through AI models to really like kind of solve it on all of these different fronts, which is incredible.
Yeah.
I love that.
Trying.
One of the, yes, no, you're fighting the good fight. We appreciate it. I love it. One of the things that you had also mentioned as well, kind of thinking about like the different experiences that you have, the different patients and use cases, you had mentioned something really around like understanding kind of the diversity. And I'm so kind of curious around like, what are some of the either ways that you're ensuring kind of that solutions are catering to more diverse populations? Like if there's anything that's kind of top of mind for you, because I know one of the things that I think is always kind of talked about in relation to digital health really is, accessibility for patients who maybe may not have like access to tech or varying access to tech. So yeah, just so curious if you have any thoughts or insights on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And I think that we're not at the point where we can say like, yeah, we've 100% solved for that. But what are some things that, we can do or implement on like a day-to-day process or day-to-day to help combat that, right? We try and keep things at an affordable price point where they can be implemented into home. Like when looking at some of our competitors who are coming in like 10x the cost, it just becomes unrealistic for individuals to use it at home, which then kind of breaks that connected the whole mindset, right, of a connected ecosystem. So we're doing our best to try and come in at a point where it can actually be used and then benefit the individuals who use it, hopefully, right?
For sure.
So that's one thing. I would love to get into more community centers and things like that to increase access to tech for any individual who wants to be exposed to it. We've also worked with certain clinics before. So our model right now is that you can use it within the clinic and then they can purchase it and use it at home, and it can become this like hybrid model. You can have remote data sharing and things like that in a safe way in an ecosystem. But clinics themselves have purchased devices and then loaned it out to patients. So then
Nice.
in this way, they can still participate in that ecosystem as well and get all the
Totally.
benefits of that. And then our application for our end users is actually a free application. So we try and, like I mentioned before, make sure that it's as accessible as possible. We also built out solutions to support both Android and iOS systems. So that, again, is something that we're trying to do to ensure access to the technology.
Totally.
All these little things, but I hope that they
They
add up.
matter
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
That's amazing. And because, I mean, I was gonna ask, but you mentioned it, so now I actually have to extra ask. But
Yeah.
when you say AI, I'm so curious. Like, is there, what do you really think? I know there's just probably so much work that's to be done, that's already being done. But when you think about kind of like the role of AI, how are you envisioning like that kind of looking like for Squegg, your product?
Yeah. The big question, right?
Yes.
A couple different ways. So we already utilize it to essentially customize different
Nice.
activities or games per individual. So it becomes, it helps to find that just right challenge, right? So you could
Right.
take an individual's most recent assessment and then the games automatically update to meet them where they're at.
Nice.
So we're already using it in that capacity. Something that we're looking forward to using it in the future is more with like data analytics to be able to see, like so let's take the example of assessment, right? How can we use AI to make sure that someone's assessments are coming in as accurate as they can be, right? Like,
Right.
There's things that we do right now as clinicians when I'm in person with someone, little cues, right? So I tell them, okay, sit up straight, get in the proper position to be able to perform the assessment, make sure that it's being done in a standardized way, back against the chair, arm at 90-90, like thumb up, all these little things. So how can we utilize AI to be able to help, walk someone through a standardized process for assessment, but then also to catch any variances.
Right, definitely.
To make sure that, the data that's being presented is the most accurate that it can be.
I love that. No, that's so helpful. And I see an AI related question, so I'm going to ask it from one of our participants. Can the AI in your case be personalized by patient? Something like setting a goal and personalizing exercises to be able to achieve that goal. That's something that you're kind of considering.
Yeah, so definitely considering, to some extent, I would say that we are able to kind of utilize it in that sense currently, but definitely when we're talking about future expansions and future developments, that's something, that we're definitely looking at.
I love that. And speaking of the future, what are some of like the long-term goals for Squegg? Are there any other, conditions you're looking to explore or other, features, expansion? Would love to learn more about that too.
Yeah. So I think I touched on this before, but one of my biggest qualms with digital health technologies, and this probably comes from being a clinician myself, is that everything seems right now as though it's pieced, right? Like you have one solution for this and one solution for this and one solution for this. And I think what ends up happening is that me as a clinician, I'm getting all this data from different sources, from different platforms, and I'm just overwhelmed by it, right? Which is going to lead me to not adopt it. So our goal is to be able to create digital solutions for what used to be analog devices and in-person processes only. So to be able to create tech to support in-person and remote assessment, training, monitoring of various underlying impairment areas of upper extremity function. So we don't want to have one device for grip, one device for pinch, one device for range of motion, one device for, there's pain. There's so many different areas that we want to just have a device and a platform and a system that can encompass everything and be like a one-stop shop. Yeah.
That's amazing. And I wholeheartedly agree, I think, with kind of the data overload or like the tech overload that can sometimes really overwhelm clinicians. So I really like the kind of consolidation like aspect of what your vision is.
Yeah.
I love that. So I've been talking to you a lot about Squegg and the company and all of those things, but now I want to talk about you and just being a leader in this space. I mean, especially like in the year 2024 with like all of the crazy financial everything that's been going on in like a post-pandemic world. what are
Yeah.
just some of the biggest like challenges or insights or just kind of learnings that you have experienced as a leader in this space? Anything, any words of wisdom you could share with us?
Yeah, definitely. We've had our challenges, right? I think everyone in the space can attest to that. The biggest thing for me being in this position that I am is I had to really learn how to prioritize and deprioritize certain tasks. And then really build out a sense of community within our team where we're all on board for, what we're really going to go after and how to execute it. So I think that in the space that we are, right, I'll take grip strength, for example. Grip strength can play in so many different spaces. It's an indication for overall strength. It's a biomarker for aging. So there's kind of so many different markets that have reached out to us who, potential for growth into, but we've really had to kind of sit down and be like, okay, we're going to do one thing. We're going to focus on one thing right now. And we're going to do it right and put everything into it to say that we have. And then, we can look to expand into these other areas in the future. But how do we take and optimize, like take that low hanging fruit and then optimize on that? And with us right now, that's upper extremity therapy, outpatient specific. But yeah, so I think that kind of breaking through all the noise and getting everyone to just solely focus on one goal and having very clear, like OKRs, for example, is something that we use to be able to, all be aligned. But having everyone kind of geared up and working towards one mission, one goal is something that we definitely had to learn how to do.
100%. Because I would imagine, like, I mean, I think with every like different industries, like being like an occupational therapist and now moving into like this kind of more like product tech, business world, I think just through all those changes, there's so much that like you're learning and all of these things that you kind of have to know. So that was like a really good, I think, lesson for me too, as I think about like prioritization in general with my own career. So we love it. And then Gabriella, my favorite question to ask, you actually kind of hit on it a little bit earlier, but wanted to ask it. Do you have any like words of wisdom for us? Any career advice that you got? Anything that maybe a mentor told you that you wanna share with us? Would love any of that type of insight.
Yeah, it's a great question. I love that. I'm going to start asking all my mentors that question, actually. But I would say just be open to taking any opportunity that comes your way that you feel like you have a passion towards. Never feel like you are in a position, like never feel less than. Obviously, if the opportunity is being presented to you, like take it. Like shoot for the stars. It sounds cliche, but a lot of times we can doubt ourselves and we're actually so much more capable than we even know. So
that's beautiful. I love that. Thank you so much, Gabriella, for such an enlightening and incredible conversation. I learned so much about upper extremity health, so I definitely need to think about my own grip strength now.
No, thank you so much.
Thank you, Gabriella. And thanks. And make sure you join us for our next session. Also wanted to thank you to our sponsors for sponsoring this incredible conversation. Thank you to Gabriella for her amazing words of wisdom. One last quick reminder about our Women's Health Tech Challenge applications that today is the last day, so make sure you get those submitted. And we will see you all next Wednesday. Bye, everyone.